Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's October 11th, 2020. Sorry about not posting a video recently. I'm going to try and make up for that in the next couple of days. Today, what I thought I'd do is post another video on investing, and this is an advice for anyone. Certainly, I want to give information, make it available to my loved ones, my grandkids, my kids. And friends and family and everybody out there in the community as well, about what I look at when I go about choosing what to invest in. And so there's so many different categories of technologies, and there's so many different aspects to how I go through and evaluate a company as well. So those videos will all be coming. But I thought I'd give everybody an idea of the technologies that I'm very interested in, because I see, as I mentioned before in other videos, that we're at the beginning of a decade or two, of a couple of decades, where disruptive technologies are going to be are going to occur, which are going to affect all of our lives. And those of us who are aware of these disruptive technologies and aware of how to identify those corporations or companies or new startups that are actually integrating all of these various technologies, or many of these various technologies, to create a service or a product that's superior to anything else of its competition. So that's how I'm approaching things. And so ARK Invest, which is ARKINVEST, you can Google them online. And Kathy Wood and Tasha, I can't remember Tasha's last name right now. I've seen them in many YouTube videos, and they're really worth watching. I have invested in ARK Invest in the past. Now I basically just go for the corporations or the startups that I think are the most valuable. But for those people who are interested in finding out more about some of these technologies that I'm super excited about, that's a good resource. So I'm going to put up a graph of that on Kathy Wood's website, ARK Invest, that shows a timeline. So if you look across the base of the graph, you can see it goes from 1780 all the way up to 2020, and this has, and on the amplitude of the y-axis of the graph demonstrates the impact and the specific type of technological innovation that really made a big difference. So starting off back there in around just before 1800, the steam engine, that changed everything. The railways, certainly that made the continental United States much more accessible. The internal combustion engine, before that it was all horse-drawn carriages or horseback riding that were, in a major city like New York City, within a decade people were driving internal combustion engines after that point. Certainly the telephone allowed us to communicate, even to communicate overseas. That was amazing. The automobile, and certainly Henry Ford with the Model T and the assembly line and the rapid production of these internal combustion engine and making them affordable so that many families could afford having an automobile. Electricity, a major impact in the United States, all around the world. Certainly, even something like that we take for granted this day and age, a washing machine. But before the washing machine, that was quite a laborious and sometimes dangerous activity that mainly women were responsible for in most households at that point in time. And certainly that freed up, probably 20, 30 hours of the week. Having a washing machine, an electric dryer, those sorts of things. Then the computer came back in the 1980s and all, and the personal computer and all. And I remember those times very, very well, because I built multiple computers during that period of time. Then certainly the internet. The internet changed everything. It changed our educational system, it changed our financial systems, it changed the way that families were getting exposed to a more global community as well. And now we're headed into this, you see this peak at the right side of the graph in the 2020s and 2030s, which are coming ahead, which Tasha and Kathy Wood have describes several different technologies, like blockchain, for instance. Blockchain is really just a ledger system or a database or a filing system that's super encrypted, and it's time-stamped. And so this is going to change our whole financial institution. It's not just like things like Bitcoin and those cryptocurrencies, but it's going to change the way that we can have secure voting. We can have secure transfer of real estate. We can have secure transfer of all sorts of information. Anything that's being recorded can be recorded absolutely securely, where it's impenetrable to outside influences trying to change or try to steal resources that people have locked in with the blockchain. So that's very important. Genomic sequencing. Well, that's changing everything right now. As a result of the pandemic, you know that vaccines are being developed at this point in time at a rate that never before was seen. And there's a possibility that many medications, many vaccines will be developed as a result of getting the RNA or the DNA sequence and actually manufacturing these rapidly, so that we can meet the ever demanding changes that are needed in the future. This genomic sequencing can also help to correct some of the, and this isn't a tremendous number, but there are many people who have children that may have a genetic defect that causes blindness, or that causes cystic fibrosis, or causes it can cause sickle cell anemia, where we have mutations where CRISPR, and I'll talk more about these topics in the future, but where we can take and identify the defective mutated, the altered gene, the altered base in the genetic sequence. Well, with CRISPR technology, genomic sequencing, we can go in and potentially remove that section and replace it, and prevent change the actual genotype of the person so that they have a corrected genome, so that they no longer are going to be blind, they're no longer going to have sickle cell anemia or a whole plethora of other diseases. Certainly other medications will be developed as a result of genomic sequencing as well. Then we get into robotics, and robotics is such an amazing area, where robotics, there'll be all different types of robotics. There'll be robots, some that work with people, and we are heading into a time where many people who have had the single occupation throughout their 40 or 50 years of working in the world, that's going to change. People are going to have to be continuous learners, to be able to take on some of these new job positions, to work in corporations where there will be less monotonous work, there'll be less physical demanding work, it'll be safer work environments as well. So through the use of robotics and the advancements of robotics, that's going to be an amazing developmental area. Artificial intelligence, well, this is, when I think of artificial intelligence, I think of many different facets of artificial intelligence, where there's where there's narrow, middle, general, and then there's super intelligence. And the super intelligence is where the robots become self-aware and they take over the world. And I don't foresee that as actually happening. I am concerned when we get to super intelligence, artificial intelligence, that in the wrong hands, this can really be devastating for our species and for the planet as well. But right now we're in narrow artificial intelligence, and that's absolutely amazing. And I'll talk more about what sort of things we're experiencing at this time, and that are in development, that are going to change the world pretty darn quickly. What else does she have here? Energy storage. Well, energy storage, Tesla just had their battery investor day, and they're developing, they're utilizing some of the same elements that have been used in the past in battery technology, because they're using, they're drafting and bringing into their manufacturing processes and research and development processes these engineers that are looking at the chemistry, they're looking at the mechanics, the whole process of building batteries and all. And I'm talking about, we could talk about lithium-ion batteries, nickel-based batteries, the cathodes, anodes, all the size of the batteries. All of these things are changing as a result of advanced research into this type of battery technology, but there are so many other types of battery storage as well. Certainly there are compressed air storage systems, and there's old mine systems using weight systems as well, tunnel systems, and we can talk more about those ways of storing energy with utilizing renewable energy, because the sun doesn't always shine. We have overcast days, we have snow cover in our area, we certainly have the nighttime where the solar panels are inactive during those periods of time. There's times when the wind doesn't blow for the wind generation. So we can produce so much extra energy and have all of these other means through advances in battery technology. And I'm not just talking about the electrochemical batteries, I'm talking about all different types of batteries as well. So there's a lot of research into energy storage also. Let me see, financial technology. As a result of this day and age, right now, I think that the bank systems that really don't adopt these new systems, such as Square and PayPal has their various, I can't remember the name of their Cash App, but Square has a Cash App as well. So entrepreneurs and small business people don't have to go to these big banks and try to get loans from them and all. Through their various applications that they can use on their farmer's market or their small engine shop or their antique shop, whatever it may shop, people will be able to make their transitions, make their purchases, and there'll be a database of information utilizing blockchain as well to encrypt all their information, to make their taxes easier, to make all their filings easier. It's going to make it easier for them to get loans right off the bat without high interest rates and those sorts of things. So with financial technology, this is going to change everything. People will be, like Amazon is starting off to mimic some of the things that are actually going on in China for quite some time. So in some areas in China, people who are part of the system and they have the app on their phone in their wallet, go in, through facial recognition, they're identified, they go in, they put the items that they want without having any interactions with store owners or whatever, take the items they want, put them in their bag, and leave the store. Their purchases are accurately recorded, and they're appropriately charged, no additional charges there, and they weren't exposed to any other people. And we're going to have times where pandemics are going to happen again in the future, as I've talked about it in previous videos. Okay. Another big thing that's developing in China right now, and it is developing here in the United States, it isn't quite as efficient as the one in China, but 5G. 5G is going to change things, latency, and the other thing that's going on right now, and I've talked about this before, is Starlink, these low Earth orbit satellites. So by having this ability to have rapid speed internet and also have low latency, in other words, financial transactions, and utilizing autonomous, like a co-robot that's been out in medicine for a while, is the Da Vinci surgical machine, where a surgeon doesn't have to be scrubbed in. They can be on one side of the operating room, and the nurse, the patient, and the robot are on the other side of the room. And through operating at a separate site, the surgeon can accurately perform a very delicate surgery through a thoracoscopic or a laparoscopic, and this is just using something like a 1/4-inch hole going through the belly or going into the chest, and everything's maximized as far as the visual appearance of everything that the doctor can see, and with feedback through the robot to the doctor can feel and see and suture areas and remove masses, those sorts of things. And although this has been done transcontinentally before, this is going to be something that's going to change everything, and that was done through fiber optics with transcontinental transmission. With 5G and with low Earth orbit satellites, our latency, in other words, the time from sending the input to the satellite to the distant place and then getting back to us is reduced so much, so it's almost like real time. So that is something that's going to make huge differences as well. 3D printing, that's one of those things that that sort of started a craze a few years ago, where most people were doing 3D printing at home, and I think the really big thing is industries utilizing 3D printing. Now, this isn't for mass production like automobiles and that sort of thing, but when somebody needs a very specific part to be created, the 3D printing system can really help manufacturing processes and get things rolling. Another, I'd say, very important thing is extended reality. So virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. These are three different types of technologies that I think are at the beginning of a very extensive period of growth. So certainly the gaming industry is changing tremendously as a result of the internet, the internet, computing systems, artificial intelligence, all of these things, and streaming. All of these things are making it possible through these virtual and augmented realities, and certainly augmented reality, although it's in its infancy and it's big and it's bulky right now, that's going to be a game changer for everything. So you can have someone who's basically trained, who can put on a headset and go into different locations, and then there can be an expert in a different country, in a different location, in a different time zone, that can be seeing in real time what the technician is seeing in front of them, and say, okay, cut the red wire, put this brass screw in here, and so on and so forth. And I'm oversimplifying it, of course, but augmented reality is going to make it so that we can have experts every place. And that's going to change telemedicine. And telemedicine is going to be very, very important as well, because why is it that you have to move to an area where the very best surgeon is in this location, or the very best infectious disease specialist is there, or education, where you want your children to be exposed to the best. My brother, when his kids were young, he wanted his kids exposed to one of the best wrestling coaches. So they moved to an area where that coach was there, an Olympic athlete. So we will be able, through augmented reality, be able to get the very best teachers, the very best doctors, the very best engineers. We'll be able to get lots of fantastic, high quality, high value expertise available to us or to corporations with which we choose to invest in. So things are going to change pretty drastically. Our educational system will change pretty drastically as well. Remote work right now is the new normal, and so software programs like Zoom and all, it allows people to work from home or work from different locations. This is going to change real estate as well. So people aren't necessarily going to have to move to Silicon Valley or move to New York City, move these places with these high rents or high real estate prices. They'll be able to go to places that are much more economical, much more feasible for them to work in. And so remote work will be more of a new normal. It will be expanding. Corporations will have to spend much less money on airline travel, hotels, and all that sort of thing. And of course, this is going to disrupt the airlines. Right now, there's a big push to go ahead and bail out the airlines. I say bail out the people, let the people who are the shareholders in the airline industry suffer the consequences of not being a wise investor and foreseeing these things happening. Back when the airlines were, when the big Trump's taxes went through his tax policies. What did the airlines do? Well, they bought back their shares, which made everybody's investment portfolio look much better, but they weren't preparing for hard times. There are going to be more hard times in the future. So be a wise investor is what I have to say. The gaming ecosystem is going to be changing drastically with people over this last several months. The gaming industry has taken a big boom. Now, I don't know that much about gaming, and I don't do any gaming, but that's an area of significant rapid development. NVIDIA has been making chipsets now, and they just put in an offer to buy ARM as well. So that's an area to look at as well. What else? Zero contact services. So during this pandemic, we just bought a new Tesla for Thea to have, and there was zero contact. In other words, we bought it online. We did all our transactions online. I'll be making a video about our experiences buying the Model Y and what we think of the Model Y in the future. But everything, there was no contact with people whatsoever. We didn't have to go to a dealership to buy it and do the whole rigmarole, the hassles of dealing with a dealership. And we didn't have to pay all of their finance charges for the dealership, paying their energy storage, all the employees, all their insurances. All of that stuff is a big disruptor. Tesla is a big disruptor in many ways. And I'll be making videos about Tesla. I've already made some in the past as well. Social commerce is going to change everything as well. I've got quite a few things listed on my computer that I was thinking about talking about. Certainly the next generation DNA sequencing. Our healthcare systems, I think, will become more of healthcare systems instead of what they've been for the last few decades, our disease management systems. I think that there'll be, we have the opportunity of not being as impacted by the greedy corporations taking advantage of our taxpayers' research through the NIH and developing various drugs, and then through no fault of the NIH, these drugs being taken over by big pharmaceutical companies and then making them astronomical costs to us. So they're making big profits, and we have tens of millions of dollars going to the CEOs every year as a result of their high profits. And of course, those people who are invested in these pharmaceutical companies. And there's many other corporations that I could go on about, but so our insurance costs go up, our co-pays go up, all of those things happen as a result of the greed of some of these corporations. Some of these technologies that I'm talking about are going to change things. It's going to make things more secure and more transparent. So I really look forward to some of these innovations and technologies really making major changes. Is there anything else I've listed up here? Electronic vehicles, of course. The internal combustion engine, those legacy corporations, Ford, General Motors and all that, yes, they are talking about making some of their electric vehicles and all. They're really behind, and as long as they keep pouring money into their internal combustion engine manufacturing processes, they're going to be dinosaurs, and they'll be gone. Automation. So automation in factories, and I have a lot to say about automation, how much that's affecting major manufacturing processes in other corporations as well. But we'll be dealing with autonomous ride-hailing networks, robo-taxis, as Tesla calls them, where we won't need to have an Uber driver or a, I can't think of the other one right now, but we won't have to have people sitting in the seats. People can own their own electric vehicle and have that go out and do the work. So in other words, when we think about what the average person, how much time they actually are driving their cars, they're paying for the car initially, they're paying for all the upkeep, internal combustion engines require oil changes, regular repairs, brake lines, all sorts of things that if you hold on to them long enough, and I can go in at length to some of the things because I hold on to vehicles until they're at least into their teens. So when we think about the cost of an internal combustion engine, then we think about the insurance costs on top of it, and then some people have to have rent a space, parking lots to park them in during the day, and they're only using the car maybe 5 or 6% of the day. Why not, if they're going to buy that car, go out and have that become part of the autonomous fleet and pay for the car itself, and therefore their costs are decreased significantly. And these electronic vehicles, battery electronic vehicles, are so much more economical and potentially an investment if we're talking about investing into the autonomous fleets like in Tesla and all. So those are some of the things that I'm pretty excited about, the technologies and all. There's a lot of homework to be done once you know about these things. But in the last video I think I talked about getting to know what your own interests are, what your own habits are, where you work, what sort of things you're seeing around you. So to realize, whether it's shopping, the store experience when we go to a store can drastically change because you may go in and look at items and say, oh, I want this in size, whatever, size 14 or whatever it is, in this color, this material, and this style, and then it'll be shipped to you. So many things can be changed drastically, and as these other technologies occur, certainly the option of being able to even get a pretty close fit at home will be pretty easy as well. Another technology that I didn't mention was drones, autonomous drones. And we're getting close to the point where with battery technology that we'll be able to have battery-operated vertical takeoff and landing, moving people from in the city to the airport at the cost of just taking a taxi, but just being a few minutes as opposed to a half hour or 45 minutes in LA or in New York. And so it's not quite the Jetsons, but we can be seeing some amazing things happening. With smart sensors, some of the smart sensors may be able to be put out in the forest. So we know about all those terrible forest fires that happen in California on the West Coast. And one of the things that would be really advantageous if there were smart sensors that could sense certain things and report immediately back to a back station, the central station, that could so the smart sensor may detect lightning strikes, know that it's this time of year, it's dry, there's lots of dry kindling there. It can autonomously, it knows that it's lightning. By it being a smart sensor, it would alert the base station. It would send off autonomous drones, and some of those drones could go to the area, inspect the area right away, and determine, is this an electrical fire that we have here through a transformer explosion or whatever it may be, or did it just strike some trees in the area, and then send off the initial resources that are necessary to get that under control. There are drones now that are reseeding forest areas that are like paintball guns and shoot coated seeds into the soil like a paintball gun would do to reseed forests and all. Certainly, and I could talk about boring tunnels, for water storage, for transportation. There's so many amazing things that are possible that are in the development, and these are the areas that I'm looking at. So what I call this is radical. When I talk about radical, I'm talking about getting to the root of it, using the fundamentals of principles. First, looking at the most fundamental aspects, science-based aspects of whatever technology it is, and then building up from there and developing systems that don't have redundancy, in other words, you don't have parts that aren't necessary, or having processes that aren't necessary. Building systems efficiently, effectively, that do the desired mission or vision of what you have that for it. The goal of whatever that product is or service is, so that we can streamline services, make it much more appealing, make it functional, and constantly improving. So the corporations I'm looking at are radical, relentless innovators. Radical, relentless innovators. Always trying to improve, always realizing that there's some shortfall. No matter what it is that you do, there's ways that it could be improved. And the next generation of those products, not waiting to the next year, but next week, you make the innovation, you make the changes. It's like the Model Y, the new car. Already we've only had it a week. So I guess I went a bit long and the video cut off on me. I'm not sure where it ended at. I just think that radical, relentless innovation is so important when we're choosing a corporation. We want to, when we're thinking about investing in a company, there's a lot of due diligence, and I'll be talking about these, looking at the CEOs, the CFOs, what their annual statements are, what their quarterly statements are, what are the things I'm going to look in their financial data as well, and looking at what their mission is, looking at what the salary perks are for the CEO, CFOs, all of those people, and trying to not get somebody who's like some corporations that I'll talk about in the future, who are trying to get on the bandwagon or the tail feathers of someone who's really doing amazing things and just look like they're doing the amazing things. So there's lots of wonderful opportunities out there, but it really takes a lot of work. It took me months, over a year, before I finally decided it was worthwhile putting so much money into the investments that I put them into. And this is a never-ending process, so I'm always looking for the next one. And I've got over a dozen different corporations that I'm looking at now, and every month it increases by one, but it takes a lot of time and energy doing due diligence, doing the research there. But what I'm looking for are those people, those corporations, those leaders, those founders, those ones who are radically, relentlessly innovating. They're constantly making improvements. So that's it for today's video, folks. I've got to get going on some projects out here. I hope you all stay safe, take good care of yourselves, and if you got some value out of this video, please give us a thumbs up and have a great day. Bye-bye now.